Hello guys and gals, and this is part 5 of our reading of Farmer Giles of Ham. Anyways, what happened in the last episode was that Farmer Giles had followed the knights, and in some instances led the knights up towards where Cryophylax made his home, because the king wanted all the dragon's treasure. Most of the knights were killed or ran away, except it just leaves Farmer Giles, and Cryophylax is trying to trick him. But, we're going to see what happened. I think the rope is going to come in handy here sometime. So the parson was kind of smart in suggesting that. Parson Brown, or whatever his name was. We don't have very many pages left, so this might be the last video. I don't know. Okay. So, Farmer Giles threatened to cut off Cryophylax's tail if he did not come up with something worthwhile out of his lair or something. So, anyways, out came Cryophylax. Oh wait, sorry about that. First of all, we always do the copyright information. So sorry, I forgot. Here, we're going to just I'm going to do that really quick. As you can see, the story is copyright 1949, and it's all rights reserved. It says nothing about not being able to do this, so we're doing it. So anyways, here we go. Anyways, out came Cryophylax again in mighty quick time with 20 pounds, troy, of gold and silver and a chest of rings and necklaces and other pretty stuff. There, said he. Where? Said Giles. That's not half enough. If that's what you mean, not half what you've got, I'll be bound. Of course not, said the dragon, rather perturbed to find that the farmer's wits seemed to have become brighter since the day in the village. Of course not, but I can't bring it all out at once. Nor at twice, I'll wager, said Giles. In you go again, and out again double quick, or I'll give you a taste of tail biter. No, said the dragon, as he popped and out again, double quick. There, he said, putting down an enormous load of gold and 2 chests of diamonds. Now try again, said the farmer, and try harder. It's hard, cruel hard, said the dragon as he went back in again. But by the time the gray mare was getting a bit anxious on her own account, who's going to carry all this heavy stuff home, I wonder, thought she. And she gave such a long, sad look at all the bags and the boxes, and the farmer guessed her mind. Never you worry, lass, he said. We'll make the old worm do the carting. Mercy on us, said the dragon, who overheard those words as he came out of the cave for the 3rd time with the biggest load of all, and a mort of rich jewels like green and red fire. Mercy on us. If I carry all this, I will be near the death. It will be near the death of me, and a bag more I never could manage. Not if you kill me for it. Not if you kill me for it. Then there is more still, is there? Said the farmer. Yes, said the dragon. Enough to keep me respectable. He spoke near the truth for a rare wonder, and wisely as it turned out. If you will leave me what remains, he said very wily, I'll be your friend forever, and I will carry all the treasure back to your honor's own house, and not to the king's, and I will help you to keep it. What is more, said he. Again, I'm going to look here, and we need page 138. Okay. Oh, wait. Oh, once more, he said. Okay. Then the farmer took out a toothpick with his left hand, and he thought very hard for a minute. Then, done with you, he said, showing a laudable discretion. A knight would have stood out for the whole horde and got a curse laid upon it, and as likely as not, if Giles had driven the worm to despair, he would have turned and fought in the end. Tailbiter or no tailbiter, in which case Giles, if not slain himself, would have been obliged to slaughter his transport and leave the best part of his gains in the mountain. That was the end of it. The farmer stuffed his pockets with jewels, just in case anything went wrong, and gave the gray mare a small load to carry. All the rest bound on the back of Chrysophylax in boxes and bags till he looked like a royal Pantechicon. There was no chance of his flying, for his load was too great, and Giles had tied down his wings. Mighty handy this rope had turned out in the end, he thought as he remembered the parson with gratitude. So now the dragon trotted, puffing and blowing, with the mare at his tail, and the farmer holding out Coddy Mordax, otherwise known as Tailbiter, very bright and threatening. He dared try no tricks. I wouldn't either. In spite of their burdens, the mare and the dragon made better speed going back than the cavalcade had made coming. For Farmer Giles was in a hurry, not the least reason being that he had little food in his bags. Also, he had no trust in Chrysophylax after his breaking of oaths and so solemn and binding, and he wondered much how to get through a night without death or great loss. But before the night fell, he ran again into luck, for they overtook half a dozen of the servants and ponies that had departed in haste and were now wandering at a loss in the wild hills. They scattered in fear and amazement, but Giles shouted after them. "Hey, lads," he said, "come back. I have a job for you, and good wages, while this packet lasts." So they entered his service, being glad of a guide, and thinking that their wages might indeed come more regular now than had been usual. Then they rode on 7 men, 6 ponies, 1 mare, and a dragon, and Giles began to feel like a lord and stuck out his chest. They halted as seldom as they could. At night, Farmer Giles roped the dragon to... Okay, well, let's see what we have here. What did they rope the dragon to? 39... 40. Oh. 4 pickets, one to each leg, with 3 men to watch him in turn. But the gray mare kept half an eye open in case the men should try any tricks on their own account. After 3 days, they were back over the borders of their own country, and their arrival caused such wonder and uproar as had seldom been seen between the 2 seas before. In the first village that they stopped at, food and drink was showered on them free, and half of the young lads wanted to join in the procession. Giles chose out a dozen likely young fellows. He promised them good wages and bought them such mounts as he could get. He was beginning to have ideas. After resting a day, he rode on again with his new escort at his heel. They sang songs in his honor, rough and ready, but they sounded good in his ears. Some folks cheered and others laughed. It was a sight both merry and wonderful. Soon, Farmer Giles took a bend southwest and steered towards his own house, and never went near the court of the king, nor sent any message, but the news of the return of Master Aegidius spread like fire from the west. And there was great astonishment and confusion, for he came hard on the heels of a royal proclamation bidding all the towns and villages to go into mourning for the fall of the brave knights in the pass of the mountains. Wherever Giles went, the mourning was cast aside, and bells were still ringing, and people thronged by the wayside, shouting and waving their caps and their scarves, but they booed the poor dragon till he began bitterly to regret the bargain he had made. It was most humiliating for one of the ancient and imperial lineage. When they got back to Ham, all the dogs barked at him scornfully, all except Garm. He had eyes, ears, and nose only for his master. Indeed, he went quite off his head and turned somersaults all along the street. Ham, of course, gave the farmer a wonderful... Okay, there the dog is doing a somersault. Okay, of course, Ham, of course, gave the farmer a wonderful back massage. Oh, I'm kidding. 42. Welcome. But probably nothing pleased him more than finding the miller at a loss for a sneer and the blacksmith quite out of countenance. This is not the end of the affair, mark my words, said he, but he could not think of anything worse to say, and hung his head gloomily. Farmer Giles, with his 6 men and his dozen likely lads and the dragon and all, went on up the hill, and there they stayed quiet for a while, only the parson was invited to the house. The news soon reached the capital, and forgetting the official mourning and their business as well, people gathered in the streets. There was much shouting and noise. The king was in his great house, biting his nails and tugging his beard, between grief and rage, a financial anxiety. His mood was so grim that no one dared speak to him. But at last the noise of the town came to his ears. It did not sound like mourning or weeping. What was all this? What was all the noise about? He demanded. Tell the people to go indoors and mourn decently. It sounds more like a goose fair. The dragon has come back, Lord, they answered. What? Said the king. Summon our knights. What's left of them? There's no need, Lord, they answered. With Master Aegidius behind him, the dragon is tame. Is tame as tame. Or so we are informed. Okay, well, there's the king biting his nails. Or so we were informed. The news has not long come in, and the reports are conflicting. Bless our soul, said the king, looking greatly relieved. And to think, we had ordered a dirge to be sung for the fellow the day after tomorrow. Cancel it. And is there any sign of our treasure? Reports say that there is a veritable mountain of it, Lord, they answered. When will it arrive? Said the king eagerly. A good man, this Aegidius. Send him in to tell us as soon as he comes. Well, I don't think he's planning on doing that, but let's see. 44, okay. There was some hesitation in replying to this. At last someone with courage took courage and said, Your pardon, Lord, but we hear that the farmer has turned aside towards his own home. But doubtless he will hasten here in suitable raiment at the earliest opportunity. Doubtless, said the king, but confound his raiment. He has no business to go home without reporting. We are much displeased. The earliest opportunity presented itself and passed, and so did many later ones. In fact, Farmer Giles had been back for a good week or more, and still no word or news of him came to the court. On the 10th day, the king's rage exploded. Send for the fellow, he said, and they sent. It was a day hard riding to Ham each way. He will not come, Lord, said the trembling messenger 2 days later. Lightning of heaven, said the king, command him to come on Tuesday next, or he shall be cast into prison for life. Your pardon, Lord, but he still will not come. And a truly miserable messenger returned alone on Tuesday. 10,000 thunders, said the king. Take the fool to prison instead. Now send some men to fetch the churl in chains, he bellowed to those that stand by. How many men, they faltered. There is a dragon and tail-biter and broomstails and fiddlesticks, said the king. Then he ordered that his white horse and he ordered his white horse and summoned the knights, or what was left of them, and a company of men-at-arms, and he rode off in fiery anger. All the people ran out of their houses in surprise, but Farmer Giles had now become more than a hero of the countryside. He was the darling of the land. And folk did not cheer the knights and men-at-arms as they went by, though they still took off their hats to the king. And as he drew nearer to Ham, and the looks grew more sullen. In some villagers, the people shut their doors and not a face could be seen. Then the king changed from hot wrath to cold anger. He had a grim look as he rode up at last to the river beyond which lay Ham and the house of the farmer. He had a mind to burn the place down, but there was Farmer Giles on the bridge, sitting on the gray mare with Tailbiter in hand. No one else was to be seen except Garm, who was lying in the road. "Good morning, Lord," said Giles, as cheerful as day, not wanting to be spoken to. The king eyed him coldly. "Your manners are unfit for our presence," he said, "but that does not excuse you from coming when sent for." "I had not thought of it, Lord." "And that's a fact," said Giles. "I had matters of my own to mind, and had wasted time enough on your errands." "10,000 thunders!" cried the king in a hot rage again. "To the devil with you and your insolence. No reward will you get after this, and you will be lucky if you escape hanging, and hanged you shall be unless you beg our pardon here and now and give us back our sword." "Eh?" said Giles. I have got my reward, I reckon. Finders keepers, and keepers having, we say here, and I reckon Tailbiter is better with me than with your folk. But what are all these knights and men for, by any chance?" he asked. If you've come on a visit, you'd be welcome with fewer. If you want to take me away, you'll need a lot more." The king choked, and the knights went very red and looked down their noses. Some of the men-at-arms grinned since the king's back was turned to them. "Give me my sword," shouted the king, finding his voice but forgetting his plural. "Give us your crown," said Giles, a staggering remark, such as had never been heard in all the days of the Middle Kingdoms. "Lightning of heaven, seize him and bind him," cried the king, justly enraged beyond hearing. What do you hang back for? Seize him or slay him." The men-at-arms strode forward. "Help, help, help!" cried Garm. Just at that moment the dragon got up from under the bridge. He had lain there, concealed under the far bank, deep in the river. Now he let off terrible steam, for he had drunk many gallons of water at once, and there was a thick fog, and only the red eyes of the dragon to be seen in it. That is kind of scary. "Go home, you fools," he bellowed, "or I will tear you to pieces. There are knights laying cold in the mountain pass, and soon there will be more in the river. All the king's horses and all the king's men," he roared. Then he sprang forward and struck a claw into the king's white horse, and it galloped away like the 10,000 thunders that the king mentioned so often. The other horses followed and followed as swiftly. Some had met the dragon before and did not like the memory. The men-at-arms legged it as best they could in every direction, save that of Ham. The white horse was only scratched, and he was not allowed to go far. After a while the king brought him back. He was master of his own house. He was master of his own horse, at any rate, and no one could say that he was afraid of any man or dragon on the face of the earth. The fog was gone when he got back, but so were all his knights and all his men. Now things looked very different with the king, all alone to talk to a stout farmer with Tailbiter and a dragon as well. But talk did no good. Farmer Giles was obstinate. He would not yield, and he would not fight, though the king challenged him to singles combat there and then. "Nay, lord," he said, laughing, "go home and get cool. I don't want to hurt you, but you had best be off. I won't be answerable for the worm. Good day." And that was the end of the battle of the Bridge of Ham. Never a penny of all the treasure did the king get, nor any word of apology from Farmer Giles, who was beginning to think mightily well of himself. What was more, from that day, the power of the Middle Kingdom came to an end, in that neighborhood. For many a mile roundabout men took Giles for their lord. Never a man could the king, with all his titles, get a ride against the rebel Aegidius, for he had become the darling of the land, and no matter and the matter of song, and it was impossible to suppress all the lays that celebrated his deeds. The favorite one dealt with the meeting on the bridge in 100 mock heroic couplets. Chrysophylax remained long in Ham, much to the profit of Giles, for the man who has a tame dragon is naturally respected. He was honored in the tithe barn with the leave of the parson, and there he was guarded by the 12 likely lads. In this way arose the first of the titles of Giles, Dominus de Domito Serpente, which in the vulgar Lord of Tame Worm, or shortly of Tame. As such, he was widely honored, but he still paid a nominal tribute to the king, 6 oxtails and a pint of bitter, delivered on St. Matthias's day, that being the date of the meeting on the bridge. Before long, however, he advanced the Lord to Earl, and the belt of the Earl of Tame was indeed of great length. After some years, he became Prince Julius Aegidius, and the tribute ceased, for Giles, being fabulously rich, had built himself a hall of great magnificence, and gathered great strength of men-at-arms. Very bright and glorious they were, for their gear was the best that money could buy. Each of the 12 likely lads became a captain. Garm had a gold collar, and while he lived, roamed at his will, a proud and happy dog, insufferable to his fellows, for he expected all other dogs to accord him the respect due to the terror and splendor of his master. The grey mare passed to her day's end in peace, and gave no hint of her reflections. In the end, Giles became a king. Of course, the king of the little kingdom. He was crowned in Ham in the name of Aegidius Draconarius, but he was more often known as Old Giles Warming, for the vulgar tongue came into fashion at his court, and none of his speeches were in the book Latin. His wife made a queen of great size and majesty, and she kept a tight hand on the household accounts. There was no getting around Queen Agatha. At least it was a long walk. Thus Giles became at length old and venerable, and had a white beard down to his knees, and a very respectable court, in which merit was often rewarded, and an entirely new order of knighthood. These were the Worm Wardens, and a dragon was their ensign. The 12 likely lads were the senior members. It must be admitted that Giles owed his rise in a large measure to luck, though he showed some wits in the use of it. Both the luck and the wits remained with him to the end of his days, to the great benefit of his friends and his neighbors. He rewarded the parsons. He rewarded the parson very handsomely, and even the blacksmith and the miller had their bit. For Giles could afford to be generous, but after he became king, he issued a strong law against unpleasant prophecy, and made milling a royal monopoly. The blacksmith changed to the trade of an undertaker, but the miller became an obsequious servant of the crown. The parson became a bishop and set up his see in the church of Ham, which was suitably enlarged. Now, those who live still in the lands of the little kingdom will observe in this history the true explanation of the names that some of its towns and villages bear in our time. For the learned in such manners inform us that Ham, being made the chief town of the new realm by a natural confusion between the Lord of Ham and the Lord of Tame, became known by the latter name, which it retains to this day, the Thame. I don't think that's pronounced Tim. I think that's pronounced Thame. Upon the spot where Giles and Chrysophylax first made acquaintance. That place became known throughout the kingdom as Alla Draconaria, or in the vulgar, Worming Hall, and the king's name, after the king's name, and his standard. The face of the land changed since that time, and the kingdoms have come and gone, woods have fallen, and rivers have shifted, and only the hills remain, and they are worn down by the rain and the wind. But still, the name endures endures, though men now call it Wunnel, or so I am told, for villages have fallen from their pride, but in the days of which this tale speaks, Worming Hall it was. And a royal seat and the dragon standard flew above the trees, and all things went well there and merrily, while Tailbiter was above ground. We have, I think we can finish this. Envoy, or I think this is the end. Chrysophylax begged often for his liberty, and he proved expensive to feed, since he continued to grow, as dragons will, like trees, as long as there is life in them. So it came to pass, after some years, that Giles felt himself securely established, that he let the poor worm go back home. They parted with many expressions of mutual esteem, and a pact of non-aggression upon either side. In the bad heart of hearts of dragons, felt as kindly disposed towards Giles as a dragon can feel towards anyone. After all, there was Tailbiter. His life might easily have been taken, and all his hoard too. As it was, he still had a mort of treasure at home in his cave, as indeed Giles suspected. He flew back to the mountain slowly and laboriously, as his wings were clumsy with long disuse, and his size and his armor was greatly increased. Arriving home, he at once routed out a young dragon who had the temerity to take up residence in his cave while Chrysophylax was away. It is said that the noise of the battle was heard throughout Vendotia. When, with great satisfaction, he had devoured his defeated opponent, he felt better, and the scars of his humiliation were assuaged, and he slept for a long while. But at last, waking suddenly, he set off in search of that tallest and stupidest of giants who had started all the trouble one summer's night long before. He gave him a piece of his mind, and the poor fellow was very much crushed. "A blunderbuss, was it?" he said, scratching his head. "I thought it was horseflies." Finish. Or, in the vulgar, the end. And that's it. We have finished the book. This has been a reading of Farmer Giles of Ham by J.R.R. Tolkien. And I believe we're done with this book. We'll probably be starting, I'm thinking, Watership Down next. But we'll see. Anyways, if you like this content, make sure you like and subscribe and ring the bell so you know when I upload. And if you support me in any way, all that information will be in the description below. As always, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.